and welcome to the program. As uncertainties cloud the global economy with rising energy costs, the Russia aggression in Ukraine and inflationary pressures, investors across the world are turning to sustainable investment. Islamic wealth management has emerged as veritable sources of shariah-compliant investment for investors in developing economies like Nigeria. With enormous prospects, how can Islamic wealth management be leveraged to achieve economic empowerment for millions of Nigerians? This edition of the Islamic Finance Weekly will explore unlocking opportunities in Islamic wealth management for Nigerian investors. And my guest this morning is Gbenle Habeeb, who is currently the Sharia Compliance and Advisory of CapitalTrust Investment and Asset Management Limited. Good morning, Mr. Habeeb. Thank you for coming on the Islamic Finance Weekly.
Good morning, and thank you for having me on your platform.
You're welcome, sir. Research shows that out of every 100 people, only 20% achieve financial freedom, and out of every 100 working professionals, only 15% will end up in retirement financially free. Tell us the factors that affect one's ability to achieve financial freedom.
Okay, I think the research isn't perfect. I think it's true. The truth is, not everyone would achieve financial freedom. It's a sad reality, but it's also the truth. Down to what each individual wants to take or achieve from life, your goals and objectives. But basically speaking, financial freedom has to do with you being able to save, invest, have enough cash, and be able to afford the lifestyle that you want for yourself and for your family. I think largely that covers what any individual will want for him or herself when it comes to attaining financial success or financial freedom.
Exactly. Having enough savings, investments, and cash at hand is an important goal for some people. Exactly. So let's look at Sharia-compliant investing. The market for Sharia-compliant investing has been growing steadily in recent years, with private banks and investors starting to show interest. However, the global Islamic wealth management industry remains largely untapped and poised for sustainable growth. How can one assess Islamic wealth management in Nigeria?
Okay, if you mind, I would just want to relate the first question. I want to connect it with this particular one, in the sense that a whole lot of people would not attain financial freedom, and part of the reason is because people are not necessarily financially literate. You get, they won't even if you're a finance professional, for example, does not necessarily mean you would attain financial freedom. It's one thing for you to understand, be a finance professional, and it's another thing for you to be financially disciplined. So a whole lot of people are not necessarily financially literate. They don't know what it takes to ensure that, at so age, you are free from the shackles of debt or whatever that is hindering you from attaining financial freedom. Another thing is people are impatient, right? Everybody wants to make it big quickly, hence they fall into unnecessary bad investments, Ponzi schemes. You understand? So another thing I would also want to talk about is earning power. People are not necessarily earning much, and hence the reason it's difficult for them to attain financial freedom, because even to save is a bottleneck. To invest is much more a problem for them. So when we trickle this down into wealth management in Nigeria, I would also want to take off by what I want us to look at the concept of wealth as far as Islam is concerned. What did Islam say about wealth? We all know that the concept of wealth in Islam shows that originally Allah owns this wealth, and we are just an agent which Allah has entrusted this wealth on us. We can find the basis for this in so many verses in the Holy Quran. There are verses in Surah Al-Hadid, verse 7, for example, where Allah talked about we spending in charity from what He has given us. And He also stated that He has given us this as what? A trust. Because He mentioned the word mustaklafin, which is kelafa, which means He is what? Entrusting this wealth on you. So that shows and that gives the basis to, as Muslim, that wealth is what? Wealth is not yours in that technical sense of it. It is owned by Allah, entrusted to you. And if you understand this concept, we would, as much as possible, try to manage our wealth, because on the day of judgment, we would account for it. And as far as wealth management is concerned, is also a way of managing your wealth to ensure that all your goals and objectives are achieved. And it takes a process for you to be able to manage wealth properly. It starts from you or your way to accumulating the wealth, down to preserving this wealth, and it goes to you distributing this wealth, to protecting it. I like to add a last one, to purify this wealth. So we all need to, Islam has encourages or recognizes private ownership of wealth. Even though Allah has entrusted this wealth on us, Islam also recognizes the will and ability for an individual to own this wealth and have legal rights to this wealth. However, while you have ownership, private ownership to this wealth, you have the legal rights to use it, to benefit from it. So do others have a right to it, because Allah has also stated that, like the verse I mentioned in Surah Al-Hadid, where He talked about it. He talked about this too in Surah An-Nur, verse 33, and so many verses in the Quran where He talked about He is the owner of the heavens and the earth and what is in between it. And this includes everything that we benefit from the heavens and the earth and what is beneath it, which includes our wealth. So when we understand this as a Muslim, we won't have any issues managing the wealth Allah has entrusted on us. Speaking to wealth management and speaking to the processes I've laid down, that from the accumulation to the preservation, because once you acquire this wealth, maybe by working in a company through salary, because one way to acquire wealth is through earnings. Another, and by earning, it could be salary, it could be returns from your investment, and it could be inheritance. Another way is investment. The money that you get as income or salary, you could invest part of it, right? And another way is what? Your savings. Then we also have the distribution aspects. Knowing that this wealth has been entrusted on you, it is not necessarily by your might. It is not necessarily because you are the most intelligent or you're a genius. Allah distributes this as He wills. It does not necessarily mean you are the most that Allah will give you the best of wealth. No, it is what? As He wishes. So understanding this concept, once you have wealth, knowing that you need to manage it very well, because the truth again is that it can come and goes. He has said it, I give whoever I will, I wish to, right? So accumulation, I've talked about accumulation of wealth. When we go to preservation of wealth, that is, how do you ensure that this wealth that you've accumulated, you do not waste it? Because Allah also frowns at you wasting resources. Islam generally discourages wastefulness. So how do you ensure you spend this wealth judiciously? It is by spending it in a sharia-compliant manner as a Muslim, right? You do not indulge in things that are prohibited, that Allah has prohibited for us. And this also doesn't mean you need to hoard your wealth, because Islam is also against hoarding. So what Islam is trying to say when talking about preservation of wealth is ensuring that you use this wealth judiciously, it grows, and you give people their due proportion, where we talk about zakat and sadaqat. So takaful is a way for us to protect our wealth. And there are so many takaful packages that one can subscribe to and ensure that your wealth is safeguarded in one way or the other. Takaful is very, very important. It's a key ingredient as far as wealth management is concerned. Then we talk about wealth distribution, right? Like I said earlier, you have the right to benefit from your wealth, and so do others. So you spend for yourself, and you also give out in charity. And this speaks to the purification aspects. Give out zakat if you are eligible to pay zakat, and give out sadaqat, so that that can serve as a means to expiate your sins. So this, in my own opinion, in my own view, and largely most people, these are the processes to wealth management. And if you look at Nigeria as a country, right, it saddens me to say this, that a whole lot of Muslims are poor. So when we talk about wealth management, the question we should ask ourselves is, okay, how many Muslims are even willing to take up wealth management in the first place? Because to be sincere, we need to tell ourselves the truth. A whole lot of Muslims are poor. What do we need to do? We need to create that platform for prosperity. We need to create that environment through which Muslims can thrive, through which Muslims can earn, to now talk about savings, to talk about investing. So all these things needs to be there. Speaking of, we now have Islamic banks. I know the CBN regulatory bodies have done a whole lot. I think Nigeria is even at the forefront when it comes to Islamic finance regulation in Africa. So we have a robust Islamic banking regulation championed by the CBN. We also have for PENCOM, we have for NICOM, which is very good for the industry and is a good way to start. But we can't stop there. Education needs to continue. The Islamic banks are doing their bits, but more needs to be done. I know that, for example, the impermissible income of Islamic banks are given to charity. I think we also need to talk about other structures that will provide, should I say, social intervention or social institutions. Islamic banks are not necessarily set up for this, right? But perhaps part of their impermissible income can be geared towards creating these kind of structures that empowers people to be able to stand by themselves tomorrow, so that they can feed, they can earn, they can start saving, they can start investing. In my own opinion, this needs to be done first before we now start talking about wealth management. Of course, we can't downgrade the importance of wealth management, Islamic wealth management, to be sincere. But trust me, when we have a lot of prosperity stories, I think in one way or the other, Islamic wealth management would come into full fruition. But to be sincere, what the Ummah is concerned about is really how to survive, right? God, before we didn't have Islamic banks, it was very difficult for some Muslims to bank in the first place, right? Now we have them. We have a pension fund 6. We have Takafu. It's just a matter of time before all these things start coming into fruition. We have more robust structures that we now even start talking about wealth management, where we talk about, of course, we have Islamic dedicated Islamic asset management firms, right? We have them a lot. We have the Islamic banks, and a lot are still coming. So Muslims now have where to put their monies, right? But what is still missing, that I see from my own point of view, is that yes, we are now beginning to have lots of Islamic shariah-compliant vehicles or investment vehicles, but this is just one side of wealth management. There is still the other side that has to do with, should I say, succession planning, where we talk about wills, wasiya, right? I don't have the figures, but you would agree with me that a whole lot of monies is in the financial system that is unclaimed as a result of people's death, right? Or one way or the other, their heirs cannot claim their monies, right? So we need to start working towards creating structures or platforms that would enable people to be able to transfer their wealth in the case of maybe death or when death occurs. So these things need to happen. It's not happening. So a whole lot is lost. And like I mentioned earlier, one way for you to earn is through inheritance. So when there's a gap, right? And when people do not even understand this in the first place, a whole lot of Muslims do not really understand the concept of zakat. When am I eligible to pay zakat? So a whole lot of education needs to go in this. Whether we like it or not, this is also part of wealth management, and it has to do with what? Wealth protection. It has to do with wealth purification, particularly zakat. So all these things are important. Why now that we have investment vehicles, we also need to have avenues. I know some trust companies are now coming up with an alternative, Islamic alternative, where they can help their Muslim clients to manage their wealth in the case of maybe their debts. So, and I think legal practitioners, lawyers also need to come. They need to help out here in terms of wills. We can go and do a survey. I don't have it for a fact. We can do a survey. You'll be surprised and shocked at people do not even want to prepare will because they feel this is associated with death and we don't want to die. We don't like to hear the word death, right? But as a Muslim, we need to be prepared for death. And as far as wealth management is concerned, we cannot do without this. We need to put it as part of our plans. So right from the investment side, or should I say earning aspect, which has to do with wealth accumulation, down to the wealth protection and preservation and purification aspects, all these needs to be in place. I think we are gradually getting there, but we eventually get there at some point. But the education, the awareness needs to be in place for people to be able to access Islamic wealth management in Nigeria.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Habeeb. In January 2022, you were the organizer of the Maiden Financial Literacy event in collaboration with the Islamic Development Bank. So have you seen any significant change in the sensitization on saving culture, investing, and wealth management for Nigerians who can scale the financial literacy level?
Okay, so from the events, the financial literacy event that we organized in January, of course, the event was to promote financial literacy, cutting across personal finance, business finance, inheritance, and anything that has to do with our personal financial life was what that program was set out to achieve, for people to be aware, for people to know what to do and the likes. Coming from that, the truth is, I think particularly millennials and Gen Zs are now more aware of the need to be financially literate, because I think unlike maybe a decade, 2 decades ago, there are lots of information out there that can equip you to getting this information free of charge. You know, gone are the days whereby you need to visit a financial advisor for you to even get some certain level of knowledge when it comes to financial literacy or even wealth management. But today, there are blogs, there are platforms, there are apps. You know, there are a lot of tools that can help you navigate your way when it comes to financial literacy. And the purpose of the event we organized was just to continue the awareness for people to know that this financial literacy is very, very important, and for people to attain that financial freedom that, of course, everybody wants to achieve. You cannot do without educating yourself financially. In all, I would say there is a growing awareness. I think there is a lot of change. People are getting more financially aware, unlike before. And I think our economic situation has even exacerbated the need for people to just be financially aware. You know, things are expensive, inflation on the rise, you understand? So for you to just be able to navigate your way out of this, you can't just afford to be ignorant. So yeah, the awareness is growing. People are getting to take it up more here. Thank you.
All right, so talking about Sharia-compliant investing, French footballer Paul Pogba recently invested into Sharia-compliant fintech businesses as part of its goals to support people who invest in the halal way. So what lessons can we learn from this? And what is your advice to the young and old rich Muslims in Nigeria on Sharia-compliant investing?
Paul Pogba investing in Wahed was a very good one. And I think, like you stated, it's something wealthy Muslims should take up. And I think he's also their brand ambassador. And of course, being a brand ambassador really means that he believes so much in what Wahed is doing. Of course, we are not here to market Wahed, but for rich and wealthy Muslims, I think wealthy Muslims now need to look away, or should I say, start looking at backing Islamic fintech, and not necessarily Islamic ventures, people that are building something, people that are in business. I think a lot more need to come from the wealthy class to invest in these businesses. So far, so good. I know a whole lot of focus has been on sukuk, which is very good for the industry. Real estate, which is also very good for the industry. Mutual funds, and a host of other securities or investment vehicles. But the truth is this. The reason why I am proposing that there needs to be a shift and more focus, more wealth or financing needs to be put in ventures is because most of these ventures do not necessarily have the finance that would enable them to grow, right? And if you don't have businesses coming up, who will come back tomorrow to issue the sukuk that investors will put in? We need to create this prosperity. And for us to create this prosperity, we need to build companies. We need to build companies that would also allow Islamic finance to thrive. We are talking about sovereign sukuk. We should also be talking about corporate sukuk as well, right? And it would be startups that are more maybe Islamically financed, Islamic focused, or should I say businesses that are more Islamically inclined, would definitely pick a sukuk, right, as their first choice than a bond, right? The truth is today, conventional companies, or should I say companies, whether whether Islamically inclined or not, are coming today to raise sukuk. But what we now begin to have Islamically inclined businesses or Islamic fintech, for example, now coming to the market to raise sukuk. That would boost the industry a whole lot more. So this thing needs to be done. We need to back businesses.
Indeed, there is enormous opportunities in investing in Sharia-compliant products. Thank you very much. And that was Mr. Habeeb Gbenle, Sharia Compliance and Advisory of CapitalTrust and Asset Management Limited. Thank you very much, Mr. Gbenle, for sharing your perspective with us on the opportunities in Islamic wealth management. We appreciate your intervention. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much for having me.
Bye.
Bye-bye.